Good morning. Tom Hegna here. Welcome to the Paychecks and Playchecks webinar sponsored by Insurance WebEx. We have people signing in like crazy. We had to upgrade our system to accommodate everybody, but I guess those are the kind of problems that we want to have. Look, let me get started. Nobody's going to introduce me, so let me just give you a little background. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom Hegna. I've been in this business for about 30 years. I'm originally from a small town in Minnesota. I went to college at North Dakota State University on an Army ROTC scholarship. I was commissioned in the military. I spent 6 years active duty, 16 and a half years Army Reserve, retired in 2006 as a lieutenant colonel. I was 8 years with MetLife. I spent 15 years with New York Life, worked my way up to senior executive officer in that company. I retired about 5.5 years ago, and now I'm out on my own. I was speaking. I've written 4 books on retirement and retirement income. What I'd like to say before we get started is that, I know webinars are hard because you're multitasking, you're checking your email, you're taking phone calls. But look, I'm going to dedicate myself to the next 50 minutes with you, and I would ask you to just dedicate yourself for 50 minutes. I've got a lot of rich content in here. And if you stay to the end, I've got an offer for you that we've never offered to anybody else. So that's my little ticket to stay to the end. I'm also going to give you some free opportunities that you can take advantage of to follow up as well. The American Psychological Association released a report that said you can lose up to 40% of your productivity when you multitask during one of these things. So just give me your best shot for the next 40, 50 minutes, and I'll do the same. So look, I've written 4 books now in retirement. My first book is a book by the name of Paychecks and Playchecks, and I will tell you I'm a reluctant author. I never want to write a book. I didn't dream of writing a book. It wasn't on my bucket list. So why do I write a book? Well, here's why. Because right now, if your clients talk to 50 different financial advisors and ask this very simple question, how should I retire? You know what they're going to get? They're going to get 50 different opinions of what they ought to do. Well, retirement's been studied in depth by PhDs all over the world. People like Dr. David Babel of Wharton, Dr. Moshe Milevsky of Toronto, Dr. Menachem Yari of Israel, most recently, Dr. Robert C. Merton, a Nobel Prize winner who's just published in the Harvard Business Review. Guess what? I've read their research. And you know what their research says? There are not 50 optimal ways to retire. There's really one optimal way to retire, and that's not my opinion. It's based on mathematical, scientific, and economic facts. So what I'm not going to do today is stand up here and give you a bunch of my opinions. What I am going to do is lay out the math and science behind the successful retirement. I want to show each one of you how you should retire, and then you can take that information out to your clients and share with them how they should retire. Now, a lot of people think this is a knowledge business. I got news for you. This is not a knowledge business anymore. You give me an iPad, the internet in 15 minutes, I can figure out anything I need to figure out. This is now a words business. This is a language business. This is a questions business, and this is a stories business. So if you want to increase your production, work on your words, work on your language, work on your questions, and work on your stories. And what I hope you find is that this webinar is rich in powerful words, language, questions, and stories. Now, speaking of questions, if you have any questions for me during the presentation, you can click at the top. There's a Q&A button, and you can type your questions. And at the end, I will take as many questions as I can. If you happen to forget how to do that, or you can't do that, or if you're just listening to this, you can always send an email to info@tomhegna.com, info@tomhegna.com, and we'll answer your questions. Now, I can tell you the day I decided to write this book. The day was April 4th of 2011. At the time, I was a senior executive officer for New York Life. And I woke up on April 4th, 2011, reading the Wall Street Journal when the headline read, Fed's low interest rates crack retirees' nest eggs. And this article was all about a guy by the name of Forrest Yeager, 91 years of age, down in Port Charlotte, Florida, down to his last $45,000. He had it sitting in a CD earning less than 1%. It was sending him about $300 a year. He says, I'm not going to make it. I'm having to take money out of principal, and I'm going to run out of money. And I'm reading this. I want to say, Forrest, you're 91. Did you know a 91-year-old can walk into almost any insurance company in America and buy a SPIA, a lifetime income annuity? Do you know what the guaranteed payout rate right now on a 91-year-old is? About 20% a year. His $45,000 would have guaranteed him $9,000 every year for the rest of his life. But you know what? Forrest didn't know. Well, there were other people in this article, and in their 70s and 80s, they had their money sitting in high-yield bonds and stocks. They didn't know either, all right? And so I said, I got to write a book. So I wrote a book on how to retire happy and successful based on math and science, not based on some stockbroker's opinion. And the first chapter is simply titled, Whatever Happened to Happily Ever After. If you think about it, when you read those stories to your kids and grandkids, what happens at the end of every story? Everybody magically lives happily ever after. Well, did you know retirement used to be like that? Retirement in this country used to be a promise. You'd work for a company for 30 years. Then what? They'd hold a party. Then what? They'd present you with a shiny gold watch. Then what? They'd give you a guaranteed paycheck every month for the rest of your life so that you too could live happily ever after. Well, what happened to that deal? Do you realize only 19% of Americans have that pension anymore, that guaranteed paycheck for life, and 16 of the 19 are government workers? So today, unless you work for the government, you probably don't have nor ever will have that guaranteed paycheck for life. And that's happening right when there's 78 million baby boomers heading straight into retirement, a time when people need guaranteed lifetime income more than ever, and they don't have it. Add to the fact that people are living longer. The average 65-year-old male will now live to be age 8, says 85, 86. The average 65-year-old female will live to be now age 89. Well, what's the problem with averages? Well, the problem with averages is that has nothing to do with how long any of you are going to live. Half of everyone watching this is going to live longer than that. Now, I said I would stick to mathematical, scientific, and economic facts, so let me give you my first fact of the day. Married people live longer than single people. I have no idea why, but it's a fact. So you can see that it says there his life expectancy is 85. I told you it's now 86. Hers is 88. It's now 89. But as a couple, their life expectancy is now not 92, 93. There's a 50% chance that of all the couples you sit down with, that one of them is going to live to be 93. There's a 25% chance one of them is going to live to be 97, and there will be plenty of people on this call today that will live beyond age 100. So the first key concept I want to make clear is this. When planning for people's retirement, you've got to give them income to age 100 and beyond. Now, here's a couple facts. People know how much money they have. I could prove it to you right now. I could have each one of you jot down on a piece of paper how much money have you been able to save from birth until today. And I'll bet everyone on this call could get that number within what, 600,000 or 700,000 of the real number. So you all know how much money you have. It's just that people don't know what they can expect from that money. And this has everything to do with what's called the sequence or order of returns risk. So let me try to explain sequence of returns risk broadly, and then I'll show you some slides. Sequence of returns risk is why the stock market has averaged over 12% a year since 1924. But if you're retired and you have money in the stock market, you can't take out 12% a year. You can't take out 10% a year. You can't take out 8% a year. You can't take out 6% a year. You can't even take out 4% a year. What does Morningstar say the safe withdrawal rate is? 2.8% per year. Well, to people, that doesn't even make sense. I mean, geez, if the stock market's averaged over 12% a year since 1924, certainly I can take out more than 2.8. No, you can't. And here's why. It's because once you retire, average returns don't matter. It's the order or sequence of those returns. So now let me try to show you. Here's a guy in 1973. He had $100,000. He invested his money 50% stock, 50% bonds. Over the next 22 years, you can see on the right-hand side, he averaged 10.1% a year for 22 years. And you can see that his $100,000 grew to be worth over $800,000. And it doesn't matter if we ran the numbers backwards from 1995 to 1973, he still wound up with over $800,000. That's the way that most people think the market works. That's the way the stockbrokers think the market works. And that is how the stock market works when you are a saver and an investor. Markets go up and down, but over time they always go up. And that's what we've always been taught. And when you're saving and investing money, that is not true. That is true. But the day you retire and start taking money out of a portfolio, that is not true. And all the rules that you think you know about the stock market go out the window, and average returns mean nothing. So the next slide I'm going to show you is a guy who also had $100,000 in 1973. He also invested 50% stock, 50% bond. He also averaged 10.1% a year for 22 years. But the next guy retired in 1973, and his broker told him he could take out 5% per year. Now, let me quiz you. How much did he average per year for 22 years? 10.1%. How much is he taking out? 5%. So he's fine? He's okay? No, he's dead broke. He completely ran out of money. Now, how do you run out of money if you're averaging 10% a year and you're only taking out 5%? It's because the day you retire, all the rules change. Average returns don't mean anything. Does anybody remember what happened those first 3 years, 1973, 74, 75 to the stock market? The stock market went down, down, down 3 years in a row. Here's the deal. if it's your turn to retire and you have your money in the market, and the first 3 years of your retirement, the market goes down, 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 there isn't much else I can do for you. You're either going to have to put in more, take out less, or you likely will run out of money. That's called sequence of returns risk. Here's another way of explaining it to you. And this is going to go against everything you've always been taught. You know, I know, because it goes against everything I was always taught. See, I was always taught the older you are, the more conservative you should invest. I was taught that 80-year-olds should invest their money more conservative than 60-year-olds, and 60-year-olds should invest their money more conservative than 40-year-olds. That's what I was taught. I'm sure most of you were taught that too. That's not what this chart shows. See, both of these portfolios have identical average returns, identical. What's the only difference? The only difference is that the red portfolio lost money early in retirement. It devastated their retirement. The blue portfolio lost money later in life. So if you would ask me, Tom, when is the riskiest time for me to invest my money? I'm going to tell you it's right here. It's those last 5 or 6 years that you're working and the first 5 or 6 years of retirement. See, if you want to pick a time in your life where you don't want to lose any money, you don't want to lose any money right before or right after retirement. Why? Because if you lose money in that box, it can devastate your whole retirement. Well, now let me ask you a question. Where are those 78 million baby boomers? They're all in the box. It's a very crowded box. See, the riskiest time in your life is not when you're 87. The riskiest time to invest in your life is when you're 57 or 67. You do not want to lose money in your 50s and 60s because that can devastate your whole retirement. So what does it have to do with us? Well, in our industry, we get to say the G word. What's the G word? Guarantees. We've got products that are guaranteed. We have annuities that are guaranteed. We have life insurance that's guaranteed. We can offer people guaranteed lifetime income. And what I'm telling you is that you've got to put guarantees into these baby boomers' portfolios because this is the riskiest time in their life to invest. And then inflation can have a dramatic negative impact on purchasing power, and this shows $1,000 of purchasing power at 4% inflation will be cut by more than 50% in 20 years. It'll be cut by more than 2/3 in 30 years. So remember that statement when I said you've got to have income to age 100 and beyond? Let me modify that. You need to plan to have increasing income to age 100 and beyond. So look, this is where stocks can fit. This is where mutual funds can fit. This is where real estate can fit. You can build a portfolio that if we get inflation, the portfolio goes up. But I want you to know you can also protect yourself against inflation without using any risk products. You need to know, I've already bought guaranteed lifetime income that will kick in when I turn age 60. But I bought even more that kicks in when I turn age 65. I bought even more that kicks in when I turn age 70. I bought even more that kicks in when I turn age 75. Do you understand? I've already bought guaranteed income in a ladder to ensure I will have increasing income for the rest of my life. And I did it all with guaranteed products, and you and your clients can do that as well. So, okay, I talked about the problems. What about the solutions? Look, everybody thinks retirement's so complicated. Do you know the more I study retirement, the simpler and simpler and simpler it gets? In fact, let me make each of your retirements as simple as I can. The ultimate success of each one of your retirements is going to depend on your answers to my next 2 questions. And I'm not going to ask you how big your 401k is or do you have a fancy house. You know why? Because the success of your retirement is not about your assets. It is not about your assets. It is not about your assets. See, this is a paradigm shift because if you think about it, for your whole life, for your client's whole life, they've been taught that their retirement's going to depend on this pile of money. And the bigger the pile of money, the better our retirements would be. That's what we were taught. I'm telling you, that's not exactly true. Your assets can be lost. They can be stolen. They can be swindled. They can be sued. They can be divorced. They can be decimated in a market crash or wiped out by long-term care. In fact, for most of your people, their assets are simply numbers on a piece of paper. Think about it. They're numbers on a piece of paper. And did you know for the rest of your life, there's only 2 things you will ever do with those numbers on that piece of paper? And by the way, your 401k, they're numbers on a piece of paper. There's only 2 things you're ever going to do. Number 1, you're either going to spend that money, or number 2, you're going to give that money. Think about it. That's all you're ever going to do. You're either going to spend it or you're going to give it. You're either going to give it when you're alive, or more likely you're going to give it when you die. Because I got news for you. You don't get to take any of it with you. It's all going to stay down here. So when you really study the math and science behind a successful retirement, here's what it comes down to. Where can I put my money? Where in the entire world can I put my money that will give me the most amount of income that I can spend and 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 never run out? And what is the most efficient way for me to give money to others? And you know what you're going to find in the entire world? The place you can put your money that will give you the most amount of income that you can spend and 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 never run out is going to be some form of an annuity. And the most efficient way to give money to others is going to be some form of life insurance. See, these are not opinions. These are mathematical, scientific, and economic facts. So the ultimate success of your retirement is really going to depend on your answers to these two questions. Question number one, how much guaranteed lifetime income do you have? How much guaranteed lifetime income do you have? Do you notice I did not ask you what was your rate of return on your investments last year? Did you outperform the S&P 500? That will have very little to do with the ultimate success of your retirement. Far more important, how much guaranteed lifetime income do you have? And question number two, have you taken the key retirement risks off the table? See, your answers to those two questions will determine the ultimate success of each of your retirements. Now look, there are a lot of risks in retirement. There's market risk, there's withdrawal rate risk, there's a thing called sequence or order returns risk I talked about. We might have inflation, might have deflation, you might need long-term care, you might die. There's a lot of risks in retirement, but there's only one number one risk. Take a look at that list. Which of those risks is hands down, nothing is even close? The number one risk in retirement is longevity risk. Why? Because longevity is not just a risk, it's a risk multiplier of all those other risks. Do you understand? The longer you live, the more likely the market will crash. The longer you live, the more likely you're going to take out too much money. The longer you live, the more likely inflation will decimate your purchasing power. The longer you live, the more likely you're going to need long-term care. Look, let me try to make this as simple as I can. If you retire when you're 65 and you drop dead when you're 68, it doesn't matter if the market crashes 10,000 points. It doesn't matter if inflation is 15%. It doesn't matter if you're withdrawing 12% a year. It doesn't matter if you forgot to buy long-term care insurance. You didn't live long enough. But if you live to be 75, 80, 85, 90, it's all those other risks that will wipe you out. So at all the research I can find from all the PhDs who study retirement says this: to retire successfully, you must take longevity risk off the table. If you get nothing else out of the first half of my webinar, would you get that? You must take longevity risk off the table. Hey, what did I talk about that one webinar I did? He said you must take longevity risk off the table. Well, guess what? Stocks can't do that. Bonds can't do that. Mutual funds can't do that. Managed money can't do that. CDs can't do that. Real estate can't do it. Okay, well, what can do it? It's a pretty short list. A lifetime income annuity, you might call it SPIA, can do it. A deferred income annuity, you might call it DIA, can do it. Or an income or withdrawal benefit rider from a fixed, and that includes indexed or variable annuity, can do it. That is it. What do all those products have in common? One word: annuity. What all the research I can find from the smartest PhDs in the world who study retirement says this: to retire successfully, you must put an annuity into that portfolio. Why? Because only an annuity can take longevity risk off the table. Why? Because only a life insurance company can issue an annuity. Why? Because only a life insurance company sells life insurance to be on the other side of that risk. Look, let me ask you a question, a very simple question. What is the risk to an insurance company when you sell a life insurance policy? What's the risk? Somebody dies, and they die real soon. You sell $1 million term policy, you proudly turn in a check for $25. The next day, bam, that guy gets hit by a bus. The insurance company's on $1 million. The guy died too soon. Hey, what's the risk when you sell somebody a lifetime income annuity? That somebody lives too long. She's 115 and she won't quit breathing, and every month she's breathing, those checks got to go. Do you understand? Because the insurance companies on both sides of the mortality and longevity risk scale, they're the only ones that can protect a client from dying too soon or living too long. Think about it. Let me explain it another way. I was in Singapore 3 years ago speaking for the $1 Million Roundtable. There were 7,000 people in the stadium. The day before I spoke, I get interviewed by Asia Insurance Review. It's a big magazine. They said, Tom, we've reviewed your material, and we're very concerned about U.S. life insurance companies that are selling these guaranteed paychecks for life. I said, really? They said, yes, we believe medical technology is developing so rapidly that soon people are going to live to be 100, 110, 120, maybe even 130 years of age. And if you're guaranteed paychecks for life, you're all going to go broke. And I just smiled and I said, well, you got it half right. You're right. We would be paying a lot of lifetime income. But guess what? We wouldn't be paying any death claims on all those life insurance policies you wrote. Do you understand? Because the insurance companies on both sides of that risk, they are the only ones that can protect you from dying too soon or living too long. Your stockbroker can't do it. Your banker can't do it. Only a life insurance company can do it. Think of it this way. There is no product you can buy. There's no stock or bond or real estate investment trust that will replace a life insurance policy, and on the day you die will spring up worth $5 million. Only life insurance can do that. There's no product you can buy that will replace a lifetime income annuity and guarantee you a paycheck every month for the rest of your life as long as you live. Only a lifetime income annuity can do that. And why can the insurance company do both? Because they do both. You got to understand this. This is something only the life insurance industry can do. It's a key concept. You can't retire properly with just a stockbroker or with just a banker because they can't protect you from these risks. Look, let me try to bring this in for a landing. Paychecks and Playchecks concludes with 4 simple steps that if your clients follow these 4 simple steps, they will have a happy and successful retirement that's based on math and science, not based on some stockbroker's opinion. So step number 1, you got to cover your basic expenses with guaranteed lifetime income. So the first thing you want to ask them is, how much money do you need to live your normal retirement? And that needs to be covered with guaranteed lifetime income. Now, there are 3 sources of guaranteed lifetime income. The first source you'll see is Social Security. Social Security counts. It's a lifetime income annuity. It's a guaranteed paycheck for life. The second source is a pension. A pension counts. It's a lifetime income annuity. It's a guaranteed paycheck for life. But whatever you're short, that's where the annuity fits. See, that is not where stocks fit. That is not where bonds fit. That is not where real estate fits. That's where the lifetime income annuity fits, to cover your basic living expenses for the rest of your life. And here's why. Because you take 5 key risks off the table. You take longevity risk off the table because it's a guaranteed paycheck no matter how long you live. You take deflation risk off the table because if you're getting a paycheck and we go into a deflationary economy, it's one of the best things to own in a deflationary economy. There's no market risk. There's no withdrawal rate risk. There's no order or sequence of returns risk. Do you realize you take 5 key risks off the table simply by covering a client's basic expenses with guaranteed lifetime income? Now, some people say, well, Tom, what is a lifetime income annuity? Here's what I say. It's a guaranteed paycheck for life. A guaranteed paycheck for life. And then, even more powerful, it's a guaranteed paycheck. Do you understand why so many people are not enjoying their retirement? Because they got assets, and they're losing money in oil, and they're losing money in gas. Now they're losing money in Twitter. These people are miserable. Interest rates are at 50-year lows. Assets make people miserable in retirement. What allows you to enjoy your retirement are these guaranteed paychecks and playchecks. Because when these paychecks and playchecks are coming in, you know what you better do? You better spend the money. Because you know what happens next month? Those checks come rolling in. And you better spend the money, because guess what happens next month? Those checks come rolling in. And it's the unlimited checks and spending that actually allow you to enjoy your retirement. Look, if you've got clients who are retired on assets, I got some pretty bad news. They will never, ever fully enjoy their retirement. Do you know why? Because number 1, they don't know how long they're going to live. Number 2, they don't know what rate of return they're going to get. So number 3, they don't know how much they can take out every month. So I promise you they're going to do one of 2 things. They will either take out too much money, in which case they can quickly run out of money, or far more likely they'll never take out enough. And they'll never fully enjoy their retirement, and they'll join the millions of Americans living that just in case retirement. See, what gets you out of a just-in-case retirement is guaranteed lifetime income. And what I'm telling you is you don't have to give up anything. Look at these guaranteed payout rates. Those, I know that says December 14. That's December 2016. I'm sorry about that. Those are guaranteed payout rates. Those pay you as long as you live, whether you live or, and they've got guarantees. Those are not interest rates. See, every check you get from an insurance company is composed of 3 parts. Part number 1 is principal. Anybody can give you principal. Part number 2 is interest. Anybody can give you interest. But part number 3 is the secret sauce that you can only get from a life insurance company. You can't get this from your banker. You can't get this from your broker. And in Paychecks and Playchecks, it's called mortality credits. And what math and science says is if you have an investment right now, if you have a portfolio and you don't have any mortality credits in your portfolio, math and science will prove that your current portfolio is suboptimal, less than what it could or what it should be. So now people say, well, Tom, what the heck are these mortality credits? I have a very simple story. Every year, there were 5 90-year-old ladies who went on vacation. One year, one lady said, hey, let's each put $100 in this box. We'll tape up the box, and next year when we go on vacation, we'll bring the box with us, and those of us who are still alive, we'll open the box and we'll split the money. They said, Helen, that's a great idea. So you got 5 90-year-old ladies, they each put $100 in the box. That's $500. They taped up the box. Guess what happened the next year? They forgot where they put the box. No, I made that one up. No, unfortunately, one lady died that year, so now 4 ladies split the $500. They each get $125. Now, that was a 25% rate of return in 12 months. I got 2 questions for you. How much of that money was invested in the stock market? 0. How much, what interest rate did it earn in that taped up Dust Steel box? 0. How did they get paid 25% with no money in the market and no interest rate? It's because they got paid mortality credit. So lady looks at this, she looks at her brokerage card, she says, hey, this is a pretty good deal. I'm going to put it back in the box, tape it back up, and do it again. So guess what? They decided to let her ride. The next year, one more lady died. Now 3 ladies split the $500. They each get $167. That was a 67% return in 2 years. No money in the market, no interest rate. Why? Because they got paid mortality credit. Now, I know some of you are saying, yeah, but Tom, my clients don't want their money to disappear when they die. Hey, if you sell them a lifetime income annuity, do they got to buy one where the money disappears when they die? No, the check could continue to their spouse. The check could continue to their son. The check could continue to their granddaughter. These things can pay for 100 years. All lifetime income annuities pay these mortality credits. The older you are, the longer you live, the more of these mortality credits you get paid. Let me show it to you graphically. Every check you get from an insurance company is composed of 3 parts. Principal, that's the orange box. Anybody can give you principal. Interest, that's the gray box. Anybody can give you interest. But only a life insurance company can manufacture mortality credits. Only a life insurance company can guarantee you will never, ever, ever run out of money. Look, I've given this presentation thousands of times all over the world. So I know on this webinar today, we still have a doubter or 2. You still don't believe me. So let me give you a chance to prove me wrong, and you can be a hero amongst your peers. You can work with your favorite stockbroker to do it. Here's all you got to do. Put together a portfolio that has both stocks and bonds. That's all it's got to have, stocks and bonds. Take some of the bonds out, put a lifetime income annuity in. Do you know what that'll do to every single one of your portfolios? It'll lower the risk and increase the returns. If you don't believe me, prove me wrong. But here's why you can't. Inside of a portfolio, the way that a lifetime income annuity works, it works like a AAA rated bond with a CCC rated yield with 0 standard deviation. Hey, what if you had a AAA rated bond with a CCC rated yield with 0 standard deviation? What would that do to every single one of your portfolios? It would lower the risk and increase the returns. See, Tommy's not making this stuff up. These are mathematical, scientific, and economic facts. Step number 2, you need to optimize the rest of your portfolio to protect yourself against inflation. Remember, inflation is a key risk in retirement, and the lifetime income annuity by itself in many cases can't protect you. Now, you can buy inflation protection on some. There are some annuities that do have increasing income over time, but you've got to have a plan for inflation, all right, so that the rest of your portfolio, that can be invested. That's where stocks fit. That's where bonds fit. That's where real estate fits. But as I told you, you can ladder your lifetime income as well, which is what I've done. Regardless of how you've got to do it, you've got to protect your clients against inflation. They don't just need income to age 100 and beyond. They need increasing income to age 100 and beyond. Step number 3, you must have a plan for long-term care. No retirement plan is complete without a plan for long-term care. Look, this is the number one thing most people forget about that can wipe out their entire life's work. No retirement plan is complete without a plan for long-term care. And step number 4, the most efficient way to pass your wealth to your children, grandchildren, and charities is by using permanent life insurance. See, I tell people all the time, don't leave your kids any money. Don't leave your kids any money. I want you to spend your money. I want you to leave them life insurance because you can do it for pennies on the dollar. Let me give you an example. We have 4 kids, so we sat down and I said, golly, how much do you want to leave the kids? I don't know. Let's buy $1 million second to die policy, and that guarantees they'll each have $250,000. Now there'll be some other money left over, other assets that we have left over, but we won't have to live at diminished retirement. So you know what we did? We bought a $1 million second to die policy. Do you know how much that cost us? It cost us $150,000. Done. So for 15 cents on the dollar, I'm now guaranteed that each of my kids is going to receive $250,000 when we die as a minimum. So that's what I'm talking about. I want you to spend your money. I want you to leave them life insurance because you can leave them so much more for so much less. Now, math and science is very important to me. I've talked about it a lot. But, to you and your clients, I think there's something way more important. I call it the happy factor. I think whether your clients are happy in retirement or not is way more important than math and science. So if you really want to be happy in retirement, The Wall Street Journal discovered the secret. Take a look at this. The secret to a happier retirement is friends, neighbors, and a fixed annuity. See, the Wall Street Journal studied who are the happiest people in retirement. You know what they found? People surrounded by their friends, surrounded by their families, who had guaranteed paychecks every single month. Hey, let me ask you a question. Who are your happiest clients in retirement? I bet it's a retired military, retired government, retired teacher, retired professor. It's people with pension. See, study after study after study has shown people with pensions are much happier in retirement than people who don't have pensions. Do you understand happiness in retirement is tied almost 100% to guaranteed lifetime income, not assets. Assets make people miserable. Interest rates are 50-year lows. They're losing money in oil. They're losing money in gas. They're losing money in Twitter. These people are miserable, and they also end up living a just-in-case retirement. Look, if you still don't believe me, look what Time Magazine found in Great Britain. Lifetime income stream key to retirement happiness. A new study in the land of grumps reveals that retirees with a guaranteed lifetime income stream can find true happiness. And they said securing at least a base level of lifetime income should be every retiree's priority, at least if they want to live happily ever after. And I will tell you that lines up exactly with what math and science and all the PhDs who study retirement, that you need to at least have enough guaranteed lifetime income to cover your basic living expenses. Look, if you still don't believe me when this webinar ends, I want you to Google Towers Watson and annuities and retirement happiness. They're not even in the insurance industry. They wrote a whole white paper. You can download it for free. They studied all retirees, old retirees, young retirees, rich retirees, poor retirees. Guess what? They found all retirees were happier if they had guaranteed lifetime income. Look, I'll tell you a little story about my own family. Those of you who heard me speak before, I've told this. I grew up in a small town in Minnesota, 2,500 people. Both my parents were teachers. If you know anything about teachers in small towns, they don't make much money. I had jobs. I had a paper route, I mowed lawns, and I shoveled snow. If I wanted a new baseball glove, guess what? I bought it. If I want a new bicycle, guess what? I bought it. If I wanted to go to a Twins game or North Stars game or Vikings game or Harlem Globetrotters game, you know what I had to do? I had to sell more subscriptions to the Minneapolis Star and Tribune is what I had to do. My parents didn't have much money. But guess what? My parents had pensions. My wife's parents are business owners. They made a lot more money than my parents ever did, but they had no pensions. So fast forward 50 years. My parents in their 80s, her parents in their 90s. Do you know, not one day of my life, not once, have my parents expressed a concern about running out of money. They don't even think about it. They got checks coming in every single month. They never worry about running out of money. Guess what? My wife's parents, every time we talk to them, they're running out of money. Well, they ran out of money. Do you know why? Because they planned to live to life expectancy, which at the time was age 76. She's now 92. He died last year at age 95. What is the difference between those two halves of my own family? One half had guaranteed paychecks for life, and the other one did not. I cannot stress enough to every person on this webinar that you secure guaranteed lifetime income for yourself, and you recommend it to every one of your clients. Number one, for the ultimate success of your retirement. Number two, if you want to be happy in retirement. And number three, I'll give you a bonus if you want to live longer. Look, some of you follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn, and if you don't, you probably should. I post a lot of neat stuff on retirement. I recently posted a Freakonomics study. It was actually a University of Chicago study. Freakonomics picked up, and I pushed it out through social media. It was a University of Chicago study that studied people who bought lifetime income annuities versus people who didn't. You know what they found? They found the group that bought the income annuities lived longer than the group that didn't. Not an opinion. But you know what? That should be nothing new. Many of you had to read a book called Sense and Sensibility in high school or college. It was written by Jane Austen in 1811. It's considered an American classic. Does anybody know what Jane Austen wrote about annuities in the book Sense and Sensibility back in 1811? Let me refresh your memory from chapter 2. If you observe, people always live forever when there's an annuity to be paid to them. The annuity is a very serious business. It comes over and over every year, and there is no getting rid of it. She wrote that in 1811. Look, my second book is a book by the name of Retirement Income Masters. People say, Tom, what's the difference between your books? So look, Paychecks and Playchecks is my words, my language, my stories that have worked for over 30 years in this business. Retirement Income Masters, what I did was I went around the country and I found 14 top producers. Most of these are top of the table producers. Every chapter is their story. What do they do? What do they say? How do they explain these concepts? There's some top-notch people in there, you know, some council presidents from New York Life, some top of the table producers from all over, Curtis Cloak, Raul Garuda, just a bunch of top producers. But I want to just tell you a story about Dick Austin. He's in there. Dick Austin's been in the business for over 40 years. He's been recommending guaranteed lifetime income for over 30 years. They used to think he was cuckoo. Back in the 90s, when the market was going up 20 and 30% every year, he said, you got to have some guaranteed lifetime income. You got to have some guaranteed lifetime income. Here's a story he tells in this book. He says, there was a family from Boston that had never been to the desert before. They'd never seen a cactus or a coyote or a lizard, but they wanted to. So they booked a family vacation to Death Valley, California, and they're going to go through Death Valley, through Nevada, into Arizona. And they booked it for the middle of July. When they landed, it was 127 degrees. Now, 127 degrees is so hot you can fry eggs on the pavement. But it was okay. They had a big old Lincoln Continental with ice-cold air conditioning. And they climb in the Lincoln Continental and they start their drive. And at first it was sand dunes. It went on and on. They'd never seen so much sand. Then it was cactus after cactus after cactus. There were lizards everywhere. There's a tarantula. There's a coyote. There's a rattlesnake eating a rabbit. Never seen it before, having the time of their lives. Well, as the day went long, somebody noticed the gas gauge was now almost on E, and the next town was over 100 miles away. Well, now panic set in. The air conditioner comes off. The windows come down. The heat of the day pours in. They start sweating. Now they start fighting and arguing. How can you be so stupid not to fill the tank before we go across Death Valley? Hey, how fast should we drive? Guy in the back seat said, I don't know. It looks pretty flat. I'd probably speed her up to 100, 110. We could probably coast for 5 or 6 miles. The other guy says, you are a moron. We got to slow this down to 30. We got to save fuel. The lady in the car said, I read a report once. It's 52.4 miles per hour is the optimal speed to drive across the desert. But here they are. They're fighting. They're arguing. They're sweating. They're miserable. And all their eyes were on the gas gauge as it went down, down, down. And they knew they were going to run out. They just didn't know when. And Dick says, that's why you need a lifetime income annuity. He said, see, everybody thinks running out of money in retirement is about the day you run out of money. He said, that's not true. It's about all those years when you know you're going to run out, and you're fighting, and you're arguing, and you're miserable. And all your eyes are on the bank account as it goes down, down, down. And you know you're going to run out. You just don't know when. He said, having a lifetime income annuity is just like having a quarter tank of gas guaranteed all the way across Death Valley. Hey, remember when I said this is a words business? This is a language business. This is a questions business. This is a stories business. See, people all the time say, yeah, but Tom, you got those words. You got those questions. You got those stories. I just demonstrated borrowing a story. If you don't have the words and language, questions, stories, you can borrow some of mine. That's what I do. So let me give you 3 free opportunities, and I've got an offer to give you that we've never given anybody else. So if you go to my website, tomhegna.com, there are 3 free things I want you to know about. First of all, in the middle of the page, if you click on that button, you will sign up for a free 6-week master's class. This is a case study about Jack and Diane, 2 American kids doing the best that they can. And we follow them through their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s until they die. And I teach you the best words, language, questions, and stories for each of the decades. And what are the products that work best when they're in their 30s? What works best when they're in their 50s? What works best when they're in their 70s? So I walk you through an entire life case over a 6-week period of time. I'm going to send you emails. I'm going to send you video clips. I'm going to send you articles that I've written. These are all free and can help you become a master in the retirement income market. I also want you to know, if you see where the arrow is, there is a free Social Security calculator on my website. I think it is so important now for you to run Social Security calculations for your people in their early 60s, their late 50s, to show them how to maximize their Social Security benefits. I've got a free calculator on my website. The other thing is, down at the bottom left of my website there, if you click the button for my Hegna's Hot Seat, it's a free newsletter, all right? I write a newsletter once a month, and I send it out to all the people who are signed up. And I give powerful content. If you don't believe me, you can click the blog button at the top, and you can read my previous newsletters. Let me show you some of my previous newsletters. One of them was why Ken Fisher really loves annuities, and you should too. Not only was this my newsletter, it got picked up by producers eSource, and they published it. So you can now Google why Ken Fisher really loves annuities, and my newsletter pops up on Google, all right? And I'm going to make you read that because I'm not going to tell you why he really loves it. I want you to go on and find it and read it, all right? The 60-40 portfolio is dead. Long-lived life insurance and annuities. And what I was saying in this newsletter is that your average client out there is invested 60% stocks, 40% bonds. I am telling you the 40% bond side is really dead. Why? Because the upside is very limited. You got 1, 2, 3% interest rates, and yet if interest rates go up, the downside risk is 40, 50, 60% to the downside. So bonds right now have very little upside, have a lot of downside risk. So how do you play that? Well, keep the 60% in stock. I don't have a problem with that. But for your younger people, that's where permanent life insurance fits. It can be a great bond substitute. It gets a bond-type return, 4 or 5%, but if interest rates go up, the value of your whole life policy isn't going to go down, okay? And for older people, instead of bonds, put in a lifetime income annuity where they got a AAA rated bond with a triple C rated yield with 0 standard deviation. So I'll let you read that one as well. I've developed tools that can help you in this market. So yes, all of my books are available. I've got a Don't Worry, Retire Happy book I'll talk about at the end that's tied into the public TV special on PBS. It's played in over 50 million homes now. But all of my books also have audiobooks, and I'll tell you why. Because when I was a brand new agent, I was recruited by MetLife. I was a company commander out of Fort Worth, California. I didn't know anything about insurance at all. I said, okay, I'll go to work for Met, but I didn't want to stay in California. I moved to Arizona, didn't know a single person. Guess what? I made MDRT my first year. I led my office in production every year. How do you do that if you don't know anything? It's because I listen to audiobooks every single day. I can still close business the way the Kinder Brothers taught me how to close business. I can handle objections the way the Kinder Brothers taught me how to handle objections. And what I'm telling you is I can do the same for you in this market. So on my website, tommagna.com, there's a store that's got all of these products. We got them package deals, and we're going to give you a special deal that if you want, first of all, you can get all of my slides. And so my slides, and they're updated with the latest stuff. It won't say 2014 on there. These slides, you only got to see about half of them. They're almost 100 slides. I think it's 98 slides in my Paychecks and Playchecks slide deck. In my Don't Worry, Retire Happy slide deck, there's over 200 slides. So you can get, if you order either one of those slide decks today, you don't even need a coupon. We're going to send you 10 free Paychecks and Playchecks books just for ordering the slide deck off the website. If you order any of the packages where the slide deck is included, we're going to include an extra 10 copies of Paychecks and Playchecks. So that's about a $250 value there that we're going to give to you if you order anything. We've never given this offer before. If you don't want to get the slide deck, if you want to get anything else on the website, just use the coupon code 15OFF at checkout. 15OFF at checkout. You'll get 15% off anything. All right. You do not need a coupon code for the slide deck. You just order that, and we will include an extra 10 Paychecks and Playchecks. All right. So with that, I did the Paychecks and Playchecks book, and then public television came to me and they said, Tom, we need to take this message out to the American people. But we don't think they're going to understand Paychecks and Playchecks. We need to have a simpler title. So I wrote another book. It's called Don't Worry, Retire Happy. And that is now played in over 50 million homes in the U.S. and Canada. And there's the copy of the book right there. So let me wrap up this webinar, and then I'm going to take some questions after I wrap it up. But let me wrap it up this way. I can't tell you if the market's going to go up or if the market's going to go down. I don't know. Are we going to have inflation? Are we going to have deflation? I don't know. But I do know this. If you cover your basic living expenses with guaranteed lifetime income, if you optimize the rest of your portfolio to protect yourself against inflation, if you have a plan for long-term care and use life insurance as the most efficient way to transfer wealth to your children, grandchildren, and charities, I do know this. Each one of you and your clients can have a happy and successful retirement that's based in math and science, not based in some stockbroker's opinion. So let me answer the questions. Question number 1, will a recording be available of this webinar? The answer is yes. Okay, and we'll send out that link. We have your email addresses, so we'll send out that link. I've got a very nice compliment from Larry. Thank you very much. That I gave a very compelling presentation. What did I say about the Kinder Brothers handling objections? The Kinder Brothers, now Gary Kinder's in his 80s, and Jack is dead. But Jack and Gary Kinder back in the 60s and 70s were the big time trainers in the industry, and they have videos and audiobooks. You can go to kinderbrothers.com but they help me handle objections. I've got a whole section on handling objections in many of my materials as well. You can even probably Google my name and handling objections, and probably some video pop up. So if there are no other questions, if you do have any other questions, remember, you can send an email to me at info@tomhegna.com, info@tomhegna.com. And thank you all for attending today.